From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. I am Steve Lehman. Glad to be back with you here on News Channel 5. Plus, it's been a long time. Very happy to be back with you guys. And again, I want to reiterate my great thanks to so many of you who reached out to me over the last several months. It was a long time, but I can't tell you how much emails and tweets and some of those things really lift your spirits when you're going through something like that. So I appreciate that, and I'm very excited to get back and talk some sports with you guys. We will have an open line for much of the night tonight. 737-7767 is the number. And I have a pretty simple question tonight that I would like to address. The Titans are obviously 3-10, coming off a terrible season last year, obviously. This team has shown improvement in the sense that they have largely been more competitive. They have one more win. They have a rookie quarterback that you feel like you can build around moving to the future. Now it's about getting pieces, not about identifying that quarterback, because Marcus Mariota is the guy. You feel pretty good about that. This was a team that made a coaching change mid-stride on the year and brings in Mike Mularkey. There was an immediate dividend, and they came back and they beat New Orleans. They won another game just a week ago against Jacksonville. So there has been some progress. But then Sunday against New York, a team that probably is going to be in the playoffs, certainly looks like a playoff team at this moment, that was about as bad as it gets. It's hard to go back, really, and even think of a time when the Titans were just so completely outclassed the way they were in the first half of that game. It was 27-0 at halftime. You gave up multiple sacks. You give up an interception in the first half. The defense struggles to communicate and get off the field. There were some poor tackling efforts. I mean, truly poor tackling efforts, like Parrish Cox on the goal line on the Bilal Powell touchdown reception. And then instances where they simply did not line up. Yes, the headsets went down, but this was a team completely unprepared for that play. And while the coaches described it a bit as a perfect storm, and that's probably true, does that happen to the Patriots? Does that happen to the Steelers or the Arizona Cardinals? If something goes wrong, do those teams just fail to line up and be ready? Isn't that kind of the basic nature of football or any sport, frankly, when the other team has possession of the ball and they come up and line up and the quarterback gets under center and everybody's spread out and they're now in a cadence, don't you just have to line up on top of somebody and play? It may not be the right call. It may not be what Dick LeBeau wanted because you couldn't get the call in without the headsets. I get that part. But at some point, don't you just have to be with it enough that you can line up and do something, some sort of basic scheme? They obviously did not, and the result was a 69-yard touchdown. And it was a embarrassing play that summed up the afternoon and frankly has summed up the last couple of years for the Titans. Just a disastrous moment. So my question here is, if you're a Titans fan right now, there have been some positives. You've got the positive of Marcus Mariota. You have the positive that this defense at times under Dick LeBeau this year has been pretty good. Mike Mularkey seems to have injected energy into that building. Guys seem to be playing for him more than they were in the final couple weeks of Ken Whisenhunt. But have you seen enough as a fan that you would be willing to bring Mike Mularkey back? Are you willing to get rid of that interim tag for Mike Mularkey? I'm curious about that. 737-7767. If not, do you have a guy out there in mind And then the other part of that is, how does Dick LeBeau fare in this? Remember, we're 10 months removed, essentially, from the hire of Dick LeBeau, which was a great coup for this Titans franchise, to bring in a legendary Hall of Fame defensive mastermind to get in charge of this 3-4 defensive scheme. A scheme that he has perfected, if not essentially invented, along the way during his time in Pittsburgh. And a scheme that now the Titans have put in 2 complete seasons of draft picks and offseason pickups to try to fit personnel to that. So what do you do if you're Amy Adams Strunk or Rustin Webster or Steve Underwood, whoever is going to be involved in making this decision about the future of the Titans? Are you willing to give a shot to Mike Mularkey full time? And if not, what do you do? Both in terms of the head coaching position and in terms of the guys that you have on the staff right now. 737-7767 is the number. We will get to your phone calls tonight. Also, we'll be able to dive into some other things. The Preds back at home tonight against a red-hot Calgary Flames team that has not lost yet, either in regulation or overtime, in the month of December. They are 5-0, but trail the Preds 1-0 at the first intermission thanks to a penalty shot goal from Cody Hodgson. Also, changes to the Vanderbilt football staff. After a 4-8 season, Derek Mason has decided to let go Charles Bankins, who was one of the holdovers from the James Franklin era. He was the special teams coordinator for Mason. He is now out. Also, Kevin Leidner is out on the offensive line as well. Al Smith, director of player personnel, former Titan, who worked for him, also played for them, also out at Vanderbilt. So some changes there. Maybe not a big surprise after a 4-8 season. College basketball tonight, Belmont taking on Ouachita Baptist. So we'll get highlights of that coming up on the news tonight at 10 o'clock as well. Again, we want to hear from you tonight. My question to you, what do you do with Mike Mularkey at the end of this season? He is a guy that has injected some energy into this Titans roster. He's won 2 games with a roster that had only won 3 in a year and a half prior to that. Now he's won 2 in 6 weeks. Or 7 weeks, I guess it is now. Are you willing to give him a shot? And if not, what do you do? And if you're bringing in a new head coach, how do you handle the defensive coaches, specifically Dick LeBeau? I'm curious about those thoughts. 737-7767. And we begin tonight with Gene. Gene, good evening.
Hello.
How are you, Gene? You're on the air.
Well, okay. I don't think Mike Mularkey is the answer. He is he's a good coach, but I think the Titans need to start from scratch. And my suggestion, or maybe for your comments, would be Mike Shula was the offensive coordinator with the Carolina Panthers.
Okay. You like him because of what he's done with Cam Newton, or what are the specific things that stand out to you about Shula?
Well, he's been a head coach before, I believe. And he's really taken Cam Newton to the next level, I feel like.
Let me ask you this, Gene. If you go with Shula or any of those offensive guys out there, I mean, you could name a guy like a Hugh Jackson or an Adam Gase, Josh McDaniels with the Patriots. If you do that, are you interested in keeping Dick LeBeau around and keeping this defense going in the direction it's going? Or, as you said, is it a complete scratch and a complete rebuild at this point, and you don't care? You'd let the head coach decide which direction he wants to go there.
I think the head coach would need to decide, but I don't have a problem with Dick LeBeau at all. I think he's done a good job with the talent that he has. Had a lot of injuries, but I think he's done a good job.
There certainly have been injuries, and Gene, we appreciate the call. I think that's the tough thing now if you're the Titans, is if you are absolutely determined to start over. And look, I think more than likely you're looking at a new head coach and a lot of new coaches in that building this offseason. But I think you have to be careful of what you do to that defense, because anytime you switch defensive schemes completely. You're talking about utilizing different personnel. And it was a difficult transition for the Titans, who were 4-3 for so long under Jeff Fisher and then Mike Munchak, to transition into being a 3-4. And frankly, just now this year, they probably have the right personnel. Maybe not the best personnel, but the right personnel to run this system. And you identify right now, okay, they probably need to draft a cornerback or go get another cornerback. They probably need to do some work at safety in this offseason. But up front, I think you feel pretty good about what you have on the defensive line and probably pretty good about what you have at the linebacker position at the moment. If you switch and go back to the 4-3, now all of a sudden you're going to have some serious depth issues on your defensive line, and you're going to have linebackers playing positions that they haven't played before. And you still haven't answered any questions about the cornerback or the safety that are going to have to be answered regardless at this point. So I think that's a bit of a tricky position here if you're the Titans, if you indeed want to start all over and move in a new direction. Let's go to Kip. Kip, good evening. You're next up on SportsLine.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Boy, you threw me all off of what I was going to want to talk about. First of all, I think their defense is doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I would stay with that. I think the basic problem with the Titans is the offensive line.
No question.
The other thing I want to say is I heard over the weekend that Jim Mora is up for a head coaching position in the NFL, possibly. And I don't think that that's where they should go. I think they should stick with Malarkey, at least give him another chance.
So you would be in favor of keeping Malarkey around for at least another year or two?
I would.
Okay. What specifically do you like about Malarkey that is giving you that confidence level?
I think the team has more of a spark than it did before.
I would agree. I think there's no question, and this is one thing that I like about Mike Malarkey, and I think, frankly, if you look for the most basic level of a complaint about the Ken Whisenhunt era here in Tennessee is I'm not sure Whisenhunt learned anything from his time in Arizona. The complaints out there were that he shuffled his quarterbacks, he didn't protect his quarterbacks well enough, and sometimes he was stubborn in the way he operated as a head coach. And I think for people who are covering the team all the time, like myself and others, and guys in that building, that was the knock on Ken Whisenhunt here. He wasn't protecting his quarterback the way he needed to. He shuffled his quarterbacks in and out last year. And when it came down to it, other ideas weren't good enough. He knew everything in his mind. He was going to do it his way, and you were too, or he's going to show you the door. And I don't think that played well here. And it didn't play well in the locker room. It didn't play well with the media. And it didn't play well with the fans. And ultimately, he was the one shown the door because of the lack of success. I think Mike Malarkey, who's been a head coach twice before, including a disastrous run for one season in Jacksonville a few years ago. What I know about Mike Malarkey is he was a bit like that in Jacksonville. He was a guy that was very much, these are the things we're going to do. This is the regiment we're going to take, and you better get on board. And here in Tennessee, he seems to be much more mellow, much more of a player's coach, much more of a guy that is just enjoying the opportunity and reminding himself and his staff and his players that at the end of the day, this is a game. This is football. Let's just get out there and have fun. Yeah, we're going to work hard. We're going to be prepared, but let's just have fun. And I think that has gone a long ways, Kip, in terms of exciting this team and getting them to play for Malarkey. I think you saw it in Game 1 in New Orleans. That looked like a team that wanted to play for their new head coach. Kip, we appreciate the call. We need to take a break here. We will get back. 737-7767 is the number. Phone line's open. Jay's on the other side. We'll get to him first and more of your calls. Plus, we'll probably hear from Mike Malarkey along the way tonight. Stay tuned. You're watching SportsLine here on News Channel 5 Plus.